one kit makes you happy, and one kit is too small, and the one from Mach 2 gets thrown at the wall. Go ask Atlantis, why don't you make them all? And if you go with the photo etch and you don't have the tools, you're going to end up angry and looking like a fool. Call Ian to order you some tools. When the part pops off the runner and heads for outer space, and you still cannot find it after tearing up the place, go ask Louie. I think he'll know. When the decals and acrylics have gotten old and dry, and the airbrush is all gummed up, and the yellow has fish eye, remember what the manual said. Clean the head. Clean the head.
Watch World War III on pay TV. If you want to keep the kids at home, they'll be glued to their sets, watching rockets and jets, blowing up schools and factories, putting an end to the birds and bees. It's worth every penny to tune in and see who wins the Emmy at the ruins of the Academy. Watch World War III on pay TV before your television melts away.
Close-ups on the screen.
By the face, you know.
Isn't this better than Bishop Sheen?
Better than the Late Late Show? Watching the boys from your hometown
Fighting whoever they are.
Watching the cities falling down.
It's greater than Jack Parr. They're out setting up the cameras now. Though they don't know just where, still they've got to prepare. Murrow's there to do his part, waiting for the war to start. See the hydrogen bomb explode. As those mushrooms appear, you'll be sipping your beer. Zooming in with a zoom-our lens, watching while the whole world ends. It's worth every penny to tune in and see who wins the Emmy at the ruins of the Academy. Watch World War III on pay TV before your television melts away. Before your television melts away.
Just bought some kits at a clearance sale, a tank and a Mac flatbed, and started home from the hobby shop back to my tiny shed. Up late last night detailing, man, the nipper's well cared for. 5 hours had passed and I told my babe just a half hour more, a half hour more. The wife had started talking tough, the tiny girl is boss. She insists I acknowledge her point of view. I know now that I've lost, I know now that I've lost. The sheds are filled with a score of kits unfinished for a while. The jolly green, they're search to cut you. Some camel's hair and my knife. The DC-10. There's a Saturn V and Messerschmitt in the unfinished pile. So this is a tale of a model kit unbuilt for a long, long time. I'm gonna have to let it sit, I barely got it prime. I'll first research the color scheme and do my very best to make it concours accurate, an obsession and a quest. Nose cone, strobe lights, tail rotor spar, and getting up at dawn. The sand runs through the hourglass and modeling time is gone. So make some modeling time each day, it's sure to make you smile. And finish all your model kits in your unfinished pile.
I often do these late night builds on some old kit I've found. And my mind goes back to the shelves and stacks of a store that's not around. It was not far from my neighborhood. I just liked to look around, where I'd forget the glue and would then have to go back to Hobby Town. I remember many years ago, the first kit that I chose. Then every day a new display as my stash steadily grows. The kits I make may one day break and dust might fill my nose, but I still build and I always will. I'm an idiot, I suppose. So I bid farewell to Hobby Town. I never more will see, but paint and glue are what I do, so it's eBay stores for me. Oh, I could have gotten all their stock, but I'm not one of those. They were almost free, but that's not me. I'm an idiot, I suppose. So come on, ye old glue troopers who can still build model kits. The kits are new, some need no glue, and others'll give you fits. When the paint's not dry, then you must try to leave it as it sits. If the kit is old, it can raise your soul when you have finished it. So let's bid farewell to the days of yore we never more will see. Grab your glue and get right back to that vintage old styrene. Oh, Miss Aurora and Monogram and the old kits that we chose. But we still build, and we always will. We're all idiots, I suppose.
Up over the target and flat on my back, alone and scared shitless, surrounded by flak. There's MiGs on my ass and my burner won't light. Got hung bombs and rockets, but I'll stay and fight. Does anybody read Fireball? I'm bingo for crying out loud. Please keep me out of the weather. I'm no good at flying in clouds. I came here from Seymour 13 months ago. Why MPC did this to me, I don't know. I came in the Air Force 'cause I want to fly. Now I want my mama, I don't want to die. Does anybody read Fireball? The sun's almost down out of sight. GCA, can you hear me? I'm no good at flying at night. Last time I got shot at was 72. My flight leader always told me what to do. But combat is different now, here's how it's done. It's 1v1, v1, v1, v1. Does anybody read Fireball? The airlines are hiring, I hear. Guess I'll take United's offer. a brave DC-10 engineer.
One kit makes you happy, and one kit is too small, and the one from Mach 2 gets thrown at the wall. Go ask Atlantis, why don't you make them all? And if you go with the photo etch and you don't have the tools, you're going to end up angry and looking like a fool. Call Ian to order you some tools. When the part pops off the runner and heads for outer space, and you still cannot find it after tearing up the place, go ask Louis. I think he'll know. When the decals and acrylics have gotten old and dry, and the airbrush is all gummed up, and the yellow has fish eye. Remember what the manual said. Clean the head. Clean the head.
Watch World War III on pay TV if you want to keep the kids happy.
Okay, sound check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Steve?
Sounds good.
Now you try.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Well, of course, sounds good to you. Talking on the radio.
Who wins the Emmy at the ruins of the Academy? Watch World War III on pay TV before your television melts away.
Think of the close-ups on the screen.
By the face, you know.
Isn't this better than Bishop Sheen?
Better than the Late Late Show. Watching the boys from your hometown.
Fighting whoever they are.
Watching the cities falling down.
It's greater than Jack Parr.
They're out setting up the cameras now. Though they don't know just where, still they've got to prepare. Murrow's there to do his part, waiting for the war to start. See the hydrogen bomb explode. As those mushrooms appear, you'll be sipping your beer. Zooming in with a zoom-our lens, watching while the whole world ends. It's worth every penny to tune in and see. Who wins the Emmy at the ruins of the Academy? Watch World War III on pay
some kits at a clearance sale, a tank and a Mac flatbed, and started home from the hobby shop back to my tiny shed. Up late last night detailing, man, the nipper's well cared for. 5 hours had passed and I told my babe just a half hour more, a half hour more. The wife had started talking tough, the tiny girl is boss. She insists I acknowledge her point of view. I know now that I've lost, I know now that I've lost. The sheds are filled with a score of kits unfinished for a while. The jolly green dish to cut to, some camel's hair and my knife. The DC-10, there's a Saturn V and Messerschmitt in the unfinished pile. So this is a tale of a model kit unbuilt for a long, long time. I'm gonna have to let it sit, I barely got it primed. I'll first research the color scheme and do my very best to make it concours accurate, an obsession and a quest. Nose cone, strobe lights, tail rotor spar, and getting up at dawn. The sand runs through the hourglass and modeling time is gone. So make some modeling time each day, it's sure to make you smile and finish all your model kits in your unfinished pile.
I often do these late night builds on some old kit I've found, and my mind goes back to the shelves and stacks of a store that's not around. It was not far from my neighborhood, I just liked to look around, where I'd forget the glue and would then have to go back to Hobby Town. I remember many years ago, the first kit that I chose. Then every day a new display as my stash steadily grows. The kits I make may one day break and dust might fill my nose, but I still build and I always will. I'm an idiot, I suppose. So I bid farewell to Hobby Town, I never more will see. But paint and glue are what I do, so it's eBay stores for me. Oh, I could have gotten all their stock, but I'm not one of those. They were almost free, but that's not me. I'm an idiot, I suppose. So come on, ye old glue troopers who can still build model kits. The kits are new, some need no glue, and others'll give you fits. When the paint's not dry, then you must try to leave it as it sits. If the kit is old, it can raise your soul when you have finished it. So let's bid farewell to the days of yore we never more will see. Grab your glue and get right back to that vintage old styrene. Oh, a Miss Aurora and Monogram and the old kits that we chose. But we still build, and we always will. We're all idiots, I suppose.
Up over the target and flat on my back, alone and scared shitless, surrounded by flak. There's MiGs on my ass and my burner won't light. Got hung bombs and rockets, but I'll stay and fight. Does anybody read Fireball? I'm bingo for crying out loud. Please keep me out of the weather, I'm no good at flying in clouds. I came here from Seymour 13 months ago. Why MPC did this to me, I don't know. I came in the Air Force 'cause I want to fly. Now I want my mama, I don't want to die. Does anybody read Fireball? The sun's almost down out of sight. GCA, can you hear me? I'm no good at flying at night. Last time I got shot at was 72. My flight leader always told me what to do. But combat is different now. Here's how it's done. It's 1v1, v1, v1, v1. Does anybody read Fireball? The airlines are hiring, I hear. Guess I'll take United's offer. A brave DC-10 engineer.
On live.
What's
91.
All right.
Have you just woken up?
All right.
No, I just got out of the shower.
Oh,
TMI, we're live, guys.
Troopers.
Well, at least we know he bathes. So
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody. Ken joined us at the last second here. I called you earlier, but okay. Anyway, we're running a 17-second lag. I timed it, so that's okay. So, everybody, welcome to another episode of Max's Models live stream. And looks like, oh wow, we're just kicking off. Got 91 folks on board. All right. Hope you guys who were at the impromptu live stream yesterday had a good time. That was somebody had asked me if I would do that, and I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. So I may do that from time to time as situation allows. So first things get kicked off. We got Ken and Steve with us, and Ken, I guess before we get into it, what's the deal on the boat? You said there was no damage despite getting the incident that we shall not mention. I just found the two tail probes to my little Orion spacecraft. Huh. Great.
Yes, I had the diver inspect the boat this week, and everything looks good. Everything is fine. No damage. There's a few scrapes on the bottom, but other than that, it's perfect. And today, I feel so, I don't know, made progress. We took the boat, my wife and I, we took the boat off the mooring, went up to the fueling dock, pumped out the holding tank, and went it back, and I only missed the mooring line once.
So what's the story on the shaky propeller, the vibrating prop?
It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
Okay, good. All righty. Well then. Okay, guys, as I mentioned earlier, I went and saw the movie Oppenheimer on my last trip, and that got me curious about atom bombs. I tend to get a little confused on the tonnage and everything, but started doing a little digging. And I already knew that Tsar Bomba was the biggest atom bomb ever set off at 50 megatons, so I started reading up on that. And I thought, as I had mentioned earlier, that, hey, you know what, doing a Tu-95 that with the Tsar Bomba would be an interesting build. Very historical and everything, a one-off airplane. So I go looking for a Tu-95. Now, just to so you can see, this is a 3D drawing of the actual Tu-95V Victor that dropped Tsar Bomba. The only time thing was ever dropped. They told the crew you have a 50% chance of survival. And according to flight crew, they barely survived it. In fact, witnesses said that the two expanding cloud patterns that came squirting out between them, and that was a parachute-retarded bomb. But I figured, an airplane that's that historic, an airplane and an event that are that historically significant, there should be lots of reference information, and there's not. I forgot about the secretive nature of the Russians, and I found somebody, and I believe he was from Russia. I had heard the plane was painted white, and the old 1960s film footage out there is pretty grainy. You can't make out much detail. But I found, and it's in the, I linked to the comment section below in case anybody ever wants to, make one of these. In fact, here is a 3D.
Talking about making a model of the bomb or the airplane?
Both, the airplane and with the bomb. Okay, this is kind of where we're going to go with this. Now, here's some screen capture I did of me rotating the 3D image. So this is perfect for a modeler. I wish every airplane had this, because it really shows you what needs to be painted silver and what needs to be painted white. It even has the number on it, where the bomb's placed. Remember, this is a one-off airplane, the Tu-95V, which I think was a B model they modified, real early model. And but there's no kit made of this particular airplane, which I would have thought one of the Russian companies at least. I mean, this kind of a big deal. It's like you can get 2 or 3 companies make models of the Enola Gay, but and you can buy aftermarket decals for box cars. So, but and for all of our kind of unusual airplanes like that, like the B-29s that dropped the experimental aircraft and the B-52s. Several companies make kits of. In fact, there were some in the last viewer's build of the B-52 with the X-15 on the wing. But this has been like forgotten to history, and I'm like, that's kind of a significant event to gloss over like that. And I did find one kit model of what is almost the right airplane, and that is from A Model. They make a kit of the airplane, but it must be out of production because I only found one on eBay and they want $345 for it. Which
is that in rubles?
No, that's in although this is coming from Ukraine, where they don't take rubles. But I was kind of surprised that this is the only, to my knowledge, the only model of this early version of the Tu-90 Fair. And you got to think of Tu-95. And you got to think about it, the Bear is a very, very prolific airplane. I mean, it's as old as the Cold War itself almost. And they're still flying today. Now, several companies make later versions that are substantially different, especially with the radars and everything on front. There is a company out there I found on eBay for about $25 will sell a resin kit, but you got to paint the nose because the nose glass because it doesn't. It's a solid, it's 2 resin side pieces and a cap, and I was just like, and I'm not sure that cap even comes with it. So that means you got to paint on all the glass. I mean, it's and I realize it's 1/72nd scale, so, but it's not a very high def thing, and I'm
so this ad says that it's air service from the Ukraine shipment.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean it comes over in a Tu-95?
It very well may. You may have to dodge them to, but the important thing is that this 3D model of the guy shows you where the bomb placement's at, where the paint, and it's a fairly straightforward paint scheme. And I was just really, really surprised that no one has made a kit model of this particular airplane. I mean, it seems like a lost opportunity. And they're the same company makes a kit of Tsar Bomba. This is also by A Model, and it's $25 or whatever on eBay. And just so you understand how big this thing is, this is a 3D graphic I found that shows the size. I mean, the bomb's 8 meters long. It's a beast, and it's the size of a tank, and it weighs like 25 tons. So and when I was doing my research on it, I'd heard people mention something. I mean, I've seen submarines that weren't that big. When I was doing,
the thing that's odd here about the kit box you just showed, is that they show you the bomb on the carrier with the plane behind it. So
yeah, I noticed that the I'm like, and it's got the number on it. I'm thinking maybe that's the version, because they're the ones who also make the 1/72nd scale airplane. I think they made the airplane and then probably made the bomb to go with it afterwards. A new box art to help sell it, which was prudent. They should sell them together. They should sell them together as a kit, and But God, I mean, the one I saw on eBay was like $25, and but the model, $345. Just give me a break. And A Model's not exactly Tamiya.
So the Russians test drop these things too, right?
Models the bomb. What?
Yeah, they did. Didn't the Russians test drop these things too?
They test dropped one. In fact, I happen to have a picture of it right here. This is the actual blast of the Tsar Bomba. All right, and
Where did they drop it?
way up northern Russia.
Russia.
I forget the name of the place. I had to look it up. I cannot pronounce it, but it's way up northern Russia in a very sparsely populated area. It's east of Finland, and it blew out windows in Finland. Okay, real quick. Now, my interest in this all got triggered when I went and saw the Oppenheimer movie, right? So, no shock there. So,
Is that Major Kong I see there in the?
Major TK King Kong, only America's greatest hero. So, just real quick, and I didn't bother to load any diagrams or anything, but I watched a couple documentaries on the Tsar Bomba getting ready for tonight's video, and one of them came out of the Eastern Bloc somewhere. And the guy who did it, and another guy was by a European, another was done by American, and they all said the same thing. Nowhere can anyone find any like drawings of the internal workings of the bomb. The Russians, it's still a closely held state secret, still the largest nuke ever detonated. Now, I am going to go in the weeds a little bit here to explain something. This is not actually just one atom bomb. It's actually either 2 or 3, but let me explain. This uses an atom bomb to trigger the other atom bomb. All right? It uses a bomb, apparently, they're pretty sure it's pretty much like Fat Man. And that is detonated like any nuke with conventional explosives. When it goes off, it detonates the larger tube behind it, which has the other fissionable material. But I forget it. I get confused on this. It goes from fission to fusion. But anyway, it literally takes an atom bomb to trigger the main bomb. When it does, they have a thing called a tamper, which is basically a shell. And the Russians realized, as big as this thing was, that they made the tamper out of I think it was plutonium, that they would wind up with about 100 megaton bomb. There's no way the airplane would get away, the drop plane, which, I mean, why not just detonate it on the ground? Because this thing was detonated like 4,000 meters. But also they realized there'd be so much radiation that it would circle the globe and come back to Russia. I mean, you can literally make a bomb too big. So they used lead instead of fissionable material, and that cut the yield in half. And I'm getting really, that's the super basic. I was watching documentaries on how it worked, and I was like, wow, these things are way more complicated than I thought. Because, a simple nuke like Little Boy, you just slam a pellet into material and it goes boom, and that's it, right? And this is using bombs to detonate bombs to make bigger implosions. But here's the weird part about this bomb.
It's physics, man.
Yeah, but hold on. It's going to get weirder. Because I guess it's a fusion implosion bomb and burns off more of its fuel, it's one of the cleanest nuclear bombs ever detonated. Has far less radioactive waste and fallout. Now, that's because they use the lead tamper, of course. But it has far less loose radiation afterwards. In fact, investigators were able to go underneath the bomb site across the ground only a few hours afterwards, and they were out there with the little Geiger counters, and it was not dangerous. It wasn't. I mean, there was radiation, but it was nothing, dangerous. And which kind of scary, because that means they'd actually be more likely to use the thing than less likely, because that's a genuine city killer. If you drop the atom bomb that the Enola Gay dropped, and I've seen this demonstration done several times. If you set that bomb off in the middle of Los Angeles International Airport, the actual blast wouldn't go out past the airport fence. And, heat wave and everything would, but this bomb would actually physically erase Manhattan. And probably Jersey.
And nobody really, other than people in the Soviet Union, kind of have access to anything that really has to do with it.
We could make one. It's not beyond our ability.
I'm not saying that we couldn't make one,
right.
But it's still sort of, even though it was the biggest atomic blast on the planet, it's still kind of ridiculously shrouded in secrecy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, very much so. Very much so. And
so this could be a Capricorn 1 event.
But
you don't want the general public knowing how to make one.
Yeah. But the
Well, I'm sure that they could figure it out. Maybe.
but remember, Steve, this thing is roughly the size of a Sherman tank, so you've got to be able to transport it. But and it weighs in at like 20 or 25. Was it 27,000 kilograms? So that's roughly what 25 tons. And one design says there are 2 atom bombs on each end with the big mass unit between them, and another one says it's a big bomb on front with the, a regular implosion bomb on front with the other mass behind it. No one really knows. They're all kind of guessing. But because theoretically they all work. They basically do the same thing.
Steve Mercer says, sounds like the sort of bomb you could do a TV ad for. It beats it. It sweeps and cleans.
When they drop this thing, the parachute opened immediately. There's some film, you can go out on YouTube and watch it, but the parachute opened immediately because they had to give the crew of the, and ironically, whoever did this graphic used the wrong version of Tu-95, probably used a modern 3D graphic because it's got the maritime radar scoop on it, or radar dish. But anyway, but when they dropped this thing, I mean, that airplane was, firewalling to get out of there. And the crew had to put up blinds and everything so they wouldn't be blind. Or, I'm sorry, they wore tinted goggles so they wouldn't be blinded, and their back was to it. And they said, it was still a near-run thing. If that had been a 100 megaton bomb, they never would have got away from it.
What altitude did they explode this thing at?
I think it was 4,000 meters.
Okay.
It's about 12,000, 13,000 feet. The plane was probably in the mid-30s when it dropped it, probably going wide open. That parachute would have retarded the forward speed pretty quickly. But that only gave them a couple of minutes, so they would have had trouble getting much more than... do a quick little aviation math here, assuming it took 4 minutes to get down to, 50 feet per second. I'll give them a few minutes to get away. Yeah, they were able to cover it. But still, that photo of that blast is taken like 80 miles away or something. Of course, that just like your standard Florida afternoon thunderstorm.
Wouldn't it have been easier to just put it on a tower?
Well, I thought that's what they would do, but Steve, one reason they may not have wanted to detonate it was because everybody on the ground had to be at least like 60 miles away. And that, Trinity, they were still 10 and 20 miles away, but it might have just a matter of, getting a reliable 60 miles of cable to trigger it. Plus, they didn't know it was going to happen.
Now, see, Ken, to your earlier question of where they detonated it, they picked the middle of nowhere in northern Russia. We did it in Nevada, right next to Las Vegas, and had people bust out to watch them.
Oh, that was quite the thing. I mean, who doesn't want to go out and watch an atom bomb go off the world's biggest firecracker?
That was a big thing. That was a selling point to come out to Las Vegas in the 50s. To watch the atomic explosions? Yep. They'd take them in a bus, they'd put them up on the ridge.
Steve, that explains why, okay, you're going to love this. That explains why we're called baby boomers. Oh, come on, guys, that was a good one.
Thank you, Rodney.
They don't get no respect.
Come up with some good ones.
Ow! Whoa! And there it is, people. That dagger strikes hard.
See, now, to make this even more bizarre, what was one of the most unsafe toys of the 50s?
Oh, yeah, your own atomic nuclear lab?
Yep, the Gilbert Atomic Nuclear Lab that came with a real piece of uranium.
God, you gotta just love the 50s.
How they got that one through is beyond me to this day.
That really does. That really does boggle the mind.
I could see the commercial with Dan Aykroyd now as Erwin Mainway from Mainway.
By the way, if you notice on the back of the bomb behind the fin, there's a big bulge. That is the parachute. It was so big it had to be externally mounted on the back of the bomb. And so
was this their first bomb they set off?
Oh God, no, Ken. This bomb was set off with the express purpose of trying to influence us, the Americans, I guess, Eisenhower. The Russian, look, you got to remember, to this day, the United States is the only country that has any experience actually dropping these bombs in combat, even though it goes back to 45. But we had the B-29, we were working on the B-52, the B-47, we had all these projects. Russia's economy was a fraction the size of ours. They were trying to keep up. None of their airplanes had the range, and their jets had the range to go and come back. They were all one-way flights if they were going to make it to America. Their bombs were less capable than ours initially. And they did have an initial advantage on rocket technology, but that bomb was too big. In fact, Ken, side note, the size of the bomb is why the Russians started working on their massive proton rocket. They finally figured they needed a rocket that could carry it. So even though all of the big nuclear bomb carriers wound up, launching peaceful satellites, hallelujah, but this bomb and its weight was the impetus behind them making the large rockets that they made, and the reason for the proton being developed, which is one of the reasons the Russians let us in heavy lift for about 10 years. And, we could send a rocket to eventually by 69, we could shoot a rocket to the 68, we could shoot a rocket to the moon. But if you just had to lob one halfway across the planet, they were ahead of us for a long time. And, we caught up, but we could make smaller nukes. Now, one quick point, and I learned this when I was in the Army, they were talking about nuclear warfare. Although a bomb that big would pretty much wipe out any city, look at it. It's highly impractical to try and lob something that big. What was far more dangerous were the buses that had multiple warheads, the MIRVs, multiple reentry vehicles. Their warheads were smaller, but 3 warheads going off 20 miles from each other is far more devastating than just one big blast. It spreads everything further. They get into how, because a bomb this big was just almost ridiculous. And if you made it with a plutonium tamper, said it was 100 megaton, I mean, Christ. Oh, put it this way. This one, as you're looking at it, the blast was so big, it sent shock waves around the globe in both directions that completely circled the globe 3 times. It sent tectonic waves through that did the exact same thing, that circumnavigated the globe 3 times. The last one hitting back in the seismometer like 3 hours and 55 minutes after the initial blast. Okay? Whatever idiot would blow up a bomb twice that size? Good God, that's like trying to start another Pinatubo or something. It's like you want to blow a hole in the ground so that all those piping hot magma can come out and get us all. No. Bad bomb. Bad.
The other problem is, whatever they were delivering it with, you'd see it coming.
You would have to have been a gigantic missile. Or a large cruise one. Maybe a robotically operated. You know what? The Tu-95 probably couldn't even carry the thing one way. Well, no, I guess it could because it carried that one. But it would be a one way. It would be a one-way mission. It'd have to be either robotic or kamikaze pilots. Hey, no one ever said the Russians didn't have cojones, but
that's why we developed the bomb arc.
Yeah, this is kind of why. And but it was this bomb was more of a political bomb. Hey, look what we can do, and we can make it twice as big. You need to give us some concessions. And
could you picture hitting this thing with a bomb arc and exploding it in midair?
If the bomb went off,
they're difficult to get to blow up perfectly.
Yeah, I don't. I think if it got hit by a missile, it'd probably just fall off the airplane. However, it was armed and fell off, and the parachute deployed, and it was armed. That's a different story. If the bomb arc took the tail off the plane, they armed the missile and dropped it, or some bomb and dropped it, or something, or you knocked it loose and it was already armed. There was one nuke that we dropped that actually was fully armed. People don't realize we've had like 36 broken arrows, a lot more than people realize. and the Navy
Not
lost.
many.
In fact, the history guy just recently covered one that the Navy lost in, I think, 71 because the airplane rolled off the carrier deck. Actually, it rolled off the elevator. A lot of guys.
Bob says he doesn't think Slim Pickens could straddle this one.
No, I don't think so. But the now here's something, you guys, if you haven't seen it, I recommend you go out and watch the History Guys thing on the Navy's forgotten broken arrow. During, I think it was 71, I think it was. A lot of people know, but the little Navy Skyhawk had a small nuke it could carry. And they would do these drills where they put it on the deck, lash it up for launch, get it all ready to go, arm the bomb, all that stuff. And then that was the exercise. And then you throttle back, shut down, blah, blah, blah. Well, while the pilot hopped up into the cockpit, a young lieutenant junior grade jumped up in the cockpit, the crew was pushing the airplane back on the elevator, and apparently the ship turned and it dipped. And this kind of segues the next thing we're talking about aircraft carriers. And the airplane started rolling backwards, and the pilot didn't notice. He was fiddling with something in the cockpit, and probably all the noise couldn't hear, and they were all blowing their whistles to get his attention. Mind you, this just happened in a couple of seconds. But one guy threw a wheel chock under it, but it jumped the chock. And it hit, and it went over backwards, right off the elevator with a live nuke on board. And unfortunately, even the cockpit was up, and unfortunately it hit the water. It hit the water, inverted wheels up, and the pilot, the plane, the bomb all went down. They never. He was probably knocked unconscious because I don't think he strapped in his seat. He just hopped in the plane.
That's why my tuna fish glowed in the dark last night.
Too soon. Anyway, but the Navy didn't want to tell anybody because apparently, against treaties and stuff, Japan does not allow nuclear-powered or nuclear-armed ships to come into port. So the Navy just didn't tell them they had nukes on board. But that thing's still down at the bottom of the ocean. It's deeper than the Titanic, like 18,000 fathoms or some crap like that, or feet or whatever. Anyway, the B-43 on the Skyhawk, 1 megaton yield, which is still a pretty sizable bomb. That's bigger than anything we dropped in World War II. I mean, the Fat Man was only 21 kilotons. I think Little Boy was about 15 kilotons. And, I mean, that was, as he said in the Godzilla movie, firecrackers compared to today. Now we're talking megatons. I
think Little Boy, or whatever the smaller one was, I think that was, I may be wrong, but I think it's 14 megatons.
Yeah, that very well could be. Anyway, I just thought that given the relative significance of this, that, I didn't think I'd have this much trouble finding an airplane that you could make that out of, or only one company making it. And there's something for the boys to make. And that kind of price, I was like, never mind, I'll forget that project. Although, I mean, in a horrifying way, it was a really cool program. And my hat's off to the crew that flew that airplane, because they knew going in, they were straight with them. They told them it's even money whether you're flying out in one piece or not. So, yeah, you just got to respect the out and out.
Yeah, that's my wife in the background. Never mind.
You just got to respect the out and out, pure. Those guys just like, I mean, could you be more Russian? No, 50-50. I like chance,
So the plane just went over backwards off the elevator?
Yeah, it literally rolled backwards off the elevator. And
was Ted Kennedy the pilot?
Oh. Too soon.
It's never too soon for that.
It's never too soon to rag on Teddy. Which segues nicely in the next thing, aircraft carriers. Just so happened I flew with a captain recently. The only models he likes to build are model aircraft carriers. He just finds them intriguing. And
it's all the little planes they give you.
Yeah. And Bruce, the Mystic Modeler Ships, just did that Kitty Hawk. He did a real nice job on that. But it got me to thinking about aircraft carrier kits. And if there's one thing, there are not many subject matters that have more of a broad-ranging diversity of quality than aircraft carrier kits. I mean, some of them are really pretty bad, and some of them are outstanding. And size is no guarantee of a better kit because it's bigger. I built that Revell 1-485 Yorktown, and I put it in the middle. It's an okay kit, you know, but not terribly detailed. I mean, if you want to detail something like that, you're going to need a ton of photo etch because all the plastic components that go on it, they're just too big and globby to scale out because, you know, everything's so small on a ship that's that big. But that little Fujimi 1-700 scale Japanese carrier that I made, holy crap, I could not believe the level of detail in that thing. Everybody says that Fujimi kits are fiddly. Well, they're not kidding. You're trying to put all these tiny 1-700 scale parts on it, and they were good, crisp and clean. It was a really, really good model. And
I think the best... Yes, Ken?
I don't know how to pronounce this. JM Chladek, whatever. Does he also like the flat top haircuts?
Well, it was a pretty conservative boy, but my aircraft carrier, I built a bunch of carriers as a kid, and I could never paint the deck worth a crap. Of course, I was always trying to freehand it as a child. But I know some of them came with the deck already painted, which is a little bit of a cheat, but I can't really say that given that that Tamiya Betty that I just bought comes with completely pre-painted canopies. All
nice.
Oh, it is very nice. I'm
Nice,
loving
that's
that.
worth it right there. Yep.
And they tell you which Tamiya paint to get to match the paint so it's not off color. So I can paint everything, and then the last thing I do is drop those on there. I'm really looking forward to building that.
Very nice. Whoever came up with that idea is brilliant.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
He got an extra bowl of rice for that.
So, anyway, I'm sure a lot of you guys have built model aircraft carriers or served on them. And
can we see your smiling face instead of the atomic bomb blowing up?
I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing canopies.
You're on a bit of a delay there, Ken, or your thing's frozen because I've got the aircraft carriers up.
Oh, yeah, it was. Okay, there we go.
I think the finest aircraft carrier kit is the Tamiya Enterprise.
I had a feeling it would be a Tamiya kit. Now, if you look at the upper right, this is the Ideal Toy Company kit, I believe.
Yeah, the IPC one that had the Cam-O-Matic action.
Cam-O-Matic action, baby.
And it sailed in a circuit that was based on the Cam, which they had the submarine that did the same thing.
And
those were pretty unique kits for the time. And we're talking late 50s.
Mm-hmm. And what I love is some of the box art. I mean, this USS Lexington, where let's just launch this Regulus missile off the deck under fire, while all these jets park right next to it.
Yeah, and there's stuff exploding in the background.
Yeah, hopefully enemy ships.
With catapults sitting there, why would you launch a jet? Why would you do that?
It's a missile.
That's a Regulus missile, Ken.
Oh, I thought, okay, never mind. I thought it was one of those airplanes that stuck the rocket motors on.
And by the way, I deliberately grabbed some box arts here that not just all the usual suspects, like these French aircraft carriers, you know, the Foch and the I can't even say that, Port Avions, Benz Echelle. I'm kind of like never heard it. It's got a biplane. There's ships I never heard of before, but the best represented aircraft carriers. I went to ScaleMates and looked. There are more USS Enterprises. Of course, there are two aircraft carriers named Enterprise. There's the Yorktown class and the nuke boat. But there were 126 kits of the Enterprise, if you count every iteration, versus about 91 kits. The next one also the Hornet was another one that was very well represented, about like 102 kits. The Akagi and the Kaga, especially the Akagi, both had a lot of. It's very big Japanese carriers from World War II are also very popular. building.
Looks like a housing complex.
It does, doesn't it? Those are 2-deck hangars, top center. The Japanese carriers were double deckers, whereas we had the one maintenance deck. They had double deckers, but that created a problem. You couldn't move the airplanes around like you could on ours from bow to stern. They could only move around inside that little hangar area. The Japanese made a lot of mistakes when they designed their aircraft carriers because everything was set up with a set piece battle in mind. They had 3 major hangar sections, one for torpedo bombers, one for dive bombers, and one for fighters, and they were all equipment specific. You had to put the fighters in the forward elevator, you had to put the bombers on the middle elevator, and the dive bombers in the rear elevator, whatever it was. And whereas ours is just one big open hangar. So you could move airplanes around, and everything, we had a uniform size to our elevators, so any carrier-based airplane could go down any elevator. That gave us a lot of flexibility they didn't have. And the Brits armor-plated their flight decks, which made the ships much harder to get a bomb into the hangar to blow up. But it made them a little more top-heavy, and it also made them smaller, limited the air group. By the end of the war, I think it was our Midway class, had over like 110 airplanes on it, and they realized they actually had too many airplanes to manage. They just, with all these airplanes, we just don't have the internal infrastructure to keep track of what's going on.
Somebody just sent you a picture of the 1946 monogram kit.
Okay. Let me just log in here real quick.
And with that amount of model kits named Enterprise, it's no wonder that the Starship was named Enterprise.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, of course. What else would you call it?
Oh, here we go. Yeah, Fran sent me. This is the original shaped balsa kit. Let me download this real quick. This is what they looked like before monogram was even into plastic. It takes a few seconds here. Okay. And let me see, just go here. Plus image. And go. Click. Navigate. Okay. Boys and girls, here's your box art for a genuine monogram balsa aircraft carrier. That's actually, given when that thing came out, that's actually not bad. I mean, you can tell what it is. This is before the idea of using the box art to make exciting pictures to sell models had caught on. Because monogram was started right after World War II, and everything they made was out of wood. And that's the old Enterprise CD6
Shangri-La.
Oh, that's a Shangri-La. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's what I turned my head
with shaped balsa hull.
With shaped balsa hull. And
wow.
While we're talking about that, let me see. Do I have? There was. Oh, okay. Hold on. We're gonna get the picture. Speaking of making wooden ships, there's a link in the comments section that I put in there. This guy's name is Ken Dowd, and he has made this 7-foot hyper accurate Nautilus from the Disney movie with complete interior.
Oh, with the interior. I was watching that the other day.
Is that not impressive or what?
Yes, it is. Especially you have the toilets in there, too.
Yeah. And all the boxes have labels on them and everything. He's been working on it as a pet project for about 20 years. But so I put a link to that video below. Yeah. That's just impressive. I think somebody sent me that today. And that was just awesome.
Yeah, I watched it the other night, and I was like, boy, somebody had a lot of time in their hands.
Well, I'm gathering it's one of those things he works on when he's in the mood to do it, I mean,
but
20 years.
Look at the shop he's got.
Yeah, and he's got other models in the background. Did you see, like, oh, wait, what's that back there? And,
yeah.
But
have you guys seen the aircraft carrier that was I don't think it's still there. That was in the Air and Space Museum on the second level.
It's still there.
On the north side.
It's still there.
It is still there?
I was there a few months ago. Well, last time I went was Santiago, I think. And, yeah, it was still there. And
that is incredibly
yeah, it's about a
impressive.
1/72nd scale aircraft carrier with a complete complement of beautifully made models on it. And I first saw that thing when I went there in the, in the 80s.
It was there back in the late 70s, if I remember correctly.
I don't doubt it.
Well, when you talk about museum models, you're in like a whole different class of models.
Yeah.
Because the stuff that these guys do, it's years. It's not like weeks or months. It's years to do that stuff. There's you've all heard about the Texas Towers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Got
so
washed
the one
away.
that went down off the coast of New Jersey.
Uh-huh.
There's a museum in Barnegat, and somebody built a model by hand of the tower. This thing is absolutely unbelievable, the level of detail that's on it. I mean, it's just spectacular. And you go to some of these museums around the country and you look at some of these models, like things like aircraft carriers. You stand there with your mouth open because you can't imagine that somebody could make this out of scratch. It's not like it came in a box.
I just got an email from Mr. Wheeler. He has a 1 to 144 scale Tu-95 Bear bomber. It's the early version. And he says, "I have an older Vel. If you want it, I'll need your address." I never say no to, I never say no to Skyrim. So,
I see your ears standing up through the TV.
I shall get back to you shortly, Mr. Wheeler. Thank you. Let's see. Ooh, somebody sent me a beautiful. I was just checking the mail real quick. Somebody sent me a beautiful Mustang build here. Thanks, Mark. That is a beautiful looking P-51. It's a F-51. Yes, I think I have that kit over here. Okay, now I have to make mine as good as yours.
I think that one in the Smithsonian, I think that was 144 scale, wasn't it?
This guy says 1 to 100.
Was it 1 to 100?
The one in the Smithsonian?
Well, okay, maybe it was. I thought they were 1 to 72nd scale, but I guess he could find 1 to 100 kits. I don't think he's handmade the airplanes, but
well, yeah, I don't know about that.
He may have.
A lot of these aircraft carrier kits that you see in these naval museums, they made the planes too.
That is impressive. There's got to be a way to production line that, though.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of ships and planes, I wanted to give a... Okay. Let's roll this up here. I wanted to give Mr. Rimple a shout out. You guys probably recognize this Achronoplon from the viewers build in the Thunderbirds colors. Thunderbird 7. Mr. Rimple said he had to go out and he wouldn't be with us. But the reason I'm showing this on the live stream is I've gotten probably more comments on that model than any other model we've ever had on the live stream. It's like everybody's favorite. And I have to admit, it was a nice build and an impressive idea, and it absolutely fits the Thunderbirds universe perfectly. I mean, that really looks something like something International Rescue would operate.
It's an amazing kit.
I'll put it this way, it's less outlandish than some of the stuff they did operate.
Right.
But I just wanted to give them a shout out for that. Everybody really liked that. I don't do places or favorites or prizes or anything, but everybody is like, that one gets more notice than anything else. And there were a lot of the models get comments. I just happened to know that one got a lot more.
Well, you talk about the Tsar Bomba, okay? How big it was, how over the top it was, what it did, and then you look at the real Econoplans, and you're like, really? I mean, they were quite an interesting, piece of aircraft.
Yeah, and that would have taken something like that to move that bomb around at any speed. But then again, it's got externally mounted launchers on top. I guess you could pull those off, put one big one to, but it'd have to have 100-mile range on the rocket if you didn't want your chronoplon to get destroyed. But yeah, those two put together would be a nightmare. And
well, they really didn't fly that high. They kind of flew over the water.
Yeah, it was a ground effect vehicle. Stayed in ground effect.
Yeah, ground effects.
And those engines in the very front were to blast air down underneath the wing.
The wing to give it lift. Yeah.
As well as thrust. And what I love is the Russians are very pragmatic. Let's just put the missile launchers on top.
Since it can't go very high.
I tell you what else. Another paint scheme that would look good in, and that's a Klingon paint scheme.
I think it's interesting that because I don't know if it has anything to do with it, but the main wings are short because it flies in ground effect.
Exactly.
That elevator is enormous.
Yeah, and the sponsons are out on the tips of the wings. So yeah, they have to be.
It's such a huge elevator.
Well, it needs a huge surface like that because you're not actually in the air at flying speed, so you're fighting a much thicker medium. You're fighting water. Remember, Ken, it spends a lot of time on the water. Not all of it's in the air. And I imagine it takes quite a bit to get that thing up on the step.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why all those engines are sitting out there.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it also has to balance the engines out as well.
Well, they're different chronoplons. Some have props, some have jets, some have some in the tail, some have. I've seen this very one. I think is very tight. They were operating with like 4 of the engines removed, because they didn't need all that power because they weren't lugging a load. They didn't have the missiles. So
there's one of them that's beached someplace.
Yeah, the Russians are keeping it in good shape, hoping to put it in service someday. You can actually go tour it. I think. And you get on board, you feel like you're on a big airplane. There's a video out there. A guy takes a tour of it, and an interesting concept.
Where did they fly them?
They operated on most. Well, that was a problem. They couldn't handle a lot of much of a sea state, so they primarily operated in places like the Baltic and stuff, and Caspian. The Caspian Sea, I think, is where it did a lot of its stuff. And they use them on They use much smaller ones on rivers and lakes and things. That's one way the chronoplon. It can't take
like violent piece of water.
Yeah, it can't take a bad. Smooth. It cannot take a bad sea state. By the way, this popped up a while back, and someone sent it to me. A missed opportunity for Aurora to make a model of Miss Peel.
The Avengers?
Yeah. Oh, come on, Ken. Every 12-year-old boy would have bought that.
I would have bought a case.
Put them in every room.
Yeah.
But whoever did that box art really has the vibe of the thing down pat. I mean, it's really good. Heck, it's better than a lot of Aurora's box art.
Got the Lotus, got her in the leather suit. What more could you ask for?
You think the black leather kind of maybe helped it a little bit?
Yeah, but the point is, it's just that...
Come on. This is the only woman who ever married James Bond. Come on.
Diana Rigg, yeah. And, they could have done... they did James Bond, and they did The Men from U.N.C.L.E. I don't think they ever did The Saint.
No.
And, or the Avengers.
The only thing they ever did to The Saint was they did The Saint's car when it was the reintroduction of the Saint when he drove a Jaguar, but they didn't do it when he drove the Volvo.
Oh, okay. And but I just thought I'd throw that out there because I just thought that was really cool. It makes you think, okay, what other kits did they overlook? Characters from UFO, the girls from Shadow, all that stuff. There are all kinds of things out there they could have done. That instead,
maybe Monica should do a Mrs. Peel.
I could tell her about it. I don't know if her group follows the Avengers or not, but instead of Miss Peel, we got the Chevette. Which
what a segue!
And what a segue from hot to not.
From the top of the heap to the bottom in one fell swoop.
But this gets back to people wanting to build cars that go back to their youth, even if they're not cool cars, you know. I mean, I never thought for the life of me I'd be thinking of a Chevette, a Vega, or a Pinto as a classic car, but there you go, you know.
Let me just remind you, there is no one in their right mind who would spend money on a kit of a Chevette.
That explains why it's $14.95.
Exactly. Herman left a great comment. It says, I leave for fixed dessert. This is exactly what he said. I leave for fixed dessert and come back to find Emma Peel holding forth. She perverted an entire generation of young men. God bless her. That's right.
Yes, guys, but I'm given to wonder, would you have loved her? Would you have loved her as much if she drove a Chevette?
That's almost as bad as a Pacer.
It's worse than a Pacer.
The Peel Chevette. Nah, some things are just wrong.
Trace says the only thing worse was the Yugo.
Yes.
I'm not so sure about that.
You see, my best memory of a Chevette is riding along and a friend of mine's going, God, I'm glad I don't own this.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine who was a school teacher, and he bought a Corvette, and he had it for about a year, and he loaned it to his brother, and his brother ran it underneath a pickup truck. He gets the car fixed, and the car wasn't like that good. And so he just took it to the dealer and just traded it in, and he got a Chevette and a bunch of money. And his girlfriend at the time, when he showed up with the car, she left him, and he said, why? She said, well, I thought you had money.
Nah. Well, I tell you, I don't even know if there's any left for shows because they probably all rusted out, them and the Vegas both. But
yeah, Trey says the Yugo was better. It had a rear window defroster, so your hands wouldn't get cold when you were pushing it. Hysterical.
I remember, I needed a car. I was looking at a Yugo, and a friend of mine snatched me by the collar. He's like, "Nope."
No. Meanwhile, the thing that makes me laugh hysterically looking at this box is on the side where it says "loaded with racing parts."
Hey, who remembers when Joey Chitwood stunt drivers used Chevettes?
Yeah.
But then again,
actually, the only car I ever repossessed was the Chevette.
You mean you went and got it, or you had it taken away from you?
No, I repossessed it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Was it worth it? What? Tell me, Ken. Ken, was it worth the bus fare?
You want to hear the story?
Sure.
Just think of this guy's credit score that he had a Chevette repossessed from.
Yeah, and other things you don't want your friends to know.
Well, it wasn't quite like that. It was actually his car, but him and his wife were getting a divorce, and it was sitting in front of her house, and he wanted the car back, but he didn't want to go get it. So he was good friends with a friend of mine. My friend said, "Hey, would you like to help somebody repossess a car?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" Okay.
Like you do.
So we were living in D.C. at the time, so he drove me out to the car. I had the keys, and so we drive very slowly past the place, and it looks pretty quiet. So I get out of the car down the road, and I just saunter up to the car, get in the car, back out, and just drive away with the car. And my buddy was in the other guy's car, and they were going down the road, and I discovered that this car had 2 flat tires. So I'm flashing my high beams. They're like, wait, guys, I cannot catch up to you. So,
Ken, what is it with you and getting stuck in your mode of transportation?
Yeah, in a car that, anyway, so.
And by the way, Ken, unless you have papers, it's not a repossession, it's Grand Theft Auto.
Well, anyway, so she slashed 2 of the tires, and there was only 1 spare in the car.
So she had anticipated the
I was sitting there guarding
repossession.
the car. What?
She had anticipated him coming back to get it.
Yes, exactly.
Man, that's just mean, slicing up a guy's tires so he can't.
Yeah, that's just.
Gee, Ken, I wonder why he was leaving her.
Robin has the best comment of all.
What?
He said the best part of having a Chevette was you could tell people you had a vet.
With a straight face. Wow, Ken's a great friend to have. Hey, Ken, would you like to go murder a village of people? Sure, why not? I have nothing else going on right now at the moment.
That sounds sporting.
Living in D.C. and repossessing a Chevette.
I just looked up and realized with this screen with the Chevette and Miss Peel running, it looks like a crazy ex-girlfriend chasing the car down.
Well, at it this way, Ken. If you went to help him do that, you have the boat to get rid of the body.
Well, what was fun is that because there was 2 tires slashed, there was only 1 spare on the car. They had to go find another tire. So I'm sitting there at the car thinking, "Holy crap! If she pulls up right now, I'm heading into the woods."
Oh, Ken.
What was really cool about it is he let me drive the car around for a week because he didn't want her.
Yeah,
he didn't want it.
So this way, if she came looking for him, she found you. Not a good move.
No, I wasn't. I didn't go anywhere near his house.
No, Ken.
I'm sure she
what
went
would
to
be
his
worse
house
than
looking
that?
for it. It wasn't there.
What would be worse than that is if you get pulled over by the popo and it turns out it was actually her car.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah. Well, I didn't think about that part.
That's Ken. That's why he selected you to do it.
And then when we finally get the tires fixed, we go out on the Beltway and we're driving like 40 miles an hour in the right-hand lane, and I was like, "What are we doing here?"
Well, Ken, the way I see it, if a woman with a gun comes out chasing after me, I don't care if her name may be Miss Peel because I'm going to peel out of there.
Oh, another dad joke.
Haha. So, the only other two things I had to chat about tonight. One of them was I had a glue trooper ask it. Oops, I accidentally cut the sound off. If we could talk about the way people display their models, and he wasn't talking about hanging them or just sticking them on a stand, but people who do things like this where they make cool ways to display the model. Excuse me. On various ways. You guys will see the picture here in about 20 seconds. But it's I just grabbed this picture from one of the viewers' builds because I thought it was a good example I was talking about. And that is, displaying them, what are people's techniques for displaying the models, if they don't want to stand to show and they don't want to hang it up. And I imagine everybody's got an opinion on that one. I know a lot of guys like to use cotton for smoke. Some guys stick LEDs in them. Some people even use magnets so that it'll actually hover just above the base.
Oh.
And that's pretty tricky though, but it does work. I've seen it done, but it has to be something that flies low.
Saucer that does that.
What's that?
Does it have a flying saucer that does that? You plug in the base, and it's an electromagnet.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a magnet in the saucer.
And it holds it up, yeah.
Put it above it, and it just hovers.
Yep, that's what I'm talking about.
What'd you say, Ken?
I was just going to say to Max that you and I thought about getting him a B-17 that did that.
That's true. We did. But then we thought better of it.
Yeah. Then we thought, we'll get him an air compressor.
Yeah.
That's much more preferred. Thank you. But other than using cotton or some other medium to get that, so some and maybe putting some lights in it or painting it, I'm not really sure how many techniques there are for sticking models on stands that don't look like stands.
Wait, I just thought of something.
Uh-oh.
You wear a magnetic suit, and then you could put a Rocket Man costume on and just hover over the electromagnet. It would look like you're flying. It would be like Superman without the wires.
Too Too much for too little.
Oh, okay.
Better off just use a balloon and microwires.
Hey, you wouldn't have to go skydiving anymore.
No.
Yeah, as Nathan points out, the magnetic levitation is very tricky to do. You have to find the perfect center. Yeah, that's all true.
It is tricky to do.
I played with one model with it, and it kind of sort of got it to work, but I was going, this is, and it's going to hover like a half inch off the thing. I was like, it's not going to, pardon the pun, that's not going to fly.
Okay, that one's a little better.
The other one, I didn't download any pictures because it doesn't really matter, but somebody was sending me some stuff about, and I'd seen some videos on this, how you can mix baking soda with CA glue, and apparently it can be used for more than just models. I mean, people are like, it really strengthens. I don't know if anybody's tried that. But has anybody here done the baking soda and CA glue thing? Because supposedly it really makes for a super strong bond.
Hey, guys.
What?
Guys.
What?
I'm just letting you know that I'm bugging out. I'm going over to a friend of mine's house with with Deb. We're going to go play cards.
Oh, fine. Bye. Be that way.
Oh, I hurt his feelings.
Gonna play cards.
Yes, he's become the Joe Besser of the team, Max.
Hey.
Okay. Nathan was one saying, I didn't download the picture, but Nathan had a broken bracket, and he used that, and he said it's like welding plastic together. I've got to try that. Trey's going to put those lit up Rado bottles and use smoke and everything to sort of hide the stand. That C-130 is going to look awesome when he's done. Ken is bringing the shovel. I don't think they're going out. Well, I almost made a dumb comment. You don't need the shovel when you go out on a boat. That's why you use a boat.
Exactly, and some lead weights.
Unless you need to dig your way out of the bottom.
And what kind of cards will you be playing tonight, Kenneth?
We're going to play Kenneth. I don't get called Kenneth when somebody's mad at me.
Okay, Steve's asking what is the baking soda and CA glue thing. I'm going to download that picture real quick from Nathan's email. Oh, hey Tom.
No, we're gonna go play Uno.
Oh, okay.
Tommy
it's a
is
very sophisticated card game.
Tommy's telling me that down at Miramar, California, about 40 miles from him, on display is a 1 million piece model of the USS Macon made out of Legos, and he's got a picture of it. Oh, geez, a 1 million piece Lego
Some people
model.
are fascinated by this.
Save as.
Was it you're playing Uno or making baking soda and glue?
No,
Okay,
playing Uno. They're ignoring Max.
Yes. Yeah, it's part of a very large club. Let me find that. Oh, by the way, I'm not going to show the picture, but apparently somebody who had heard about the channel typed in Max's models, but they typed apostrophe S space instead of Max's models, one word. And one of the things that popped up on the feed was like the Max's model out of Germany, which is like a nude site.
Let's go check that one out. I bet their live streams are more fun than ours.
No argument there, but this is a family channel, so I didn't include the picture. But okay, let me put this picture up here. Image.
Okay, guys, I'm actually going to go leave now. So
okay.
We will.
You have a lovely evening playing cards, Kenneth.
Have fun.
Ken. Okay, Steven.
That's what my mommy called me, among other things.
I'm sure, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure I got it. Okay, someday you and I got to get together. We got to swap stories about what our parents called us when they were mad at us.
Boobs are greater than styrene. Okay.
All right, I'm out of here, guys.
All right, Ken. Have fun. All right.
Bye-bye.
Here's a picture of, and Nathan says that they actually use liquid super glue and baking soda to repair helicopter blades that have stress fractures and other aircraft applications. Anyway, I don't know what the dry time is, but apparently you mix this stuff together. And there's several videos on YouTube about it, and I've seen some demonstrations, but apparently it really, really makes a solid bond. I don't know what the magic is going on in there, but Ken doesn't have friends, so he must be playing solitaire. Trey, you're 10 seconds late with that. Should have caught him before he left. Ken, don't bet the stash. But anyway, if you mix super, supposedly, and apparently once you bond it, you better get it right because you're not unbonding it. So I have been told. So that's the deal on the CA glue and the baking soda. But like I say, there are several demonstrations on YouTube about it that you can go check out.
That's why the file is in the picture.
Yeah. The other thing, let's see, where is it? Here, this is a 1,000,000-piece model aircraft carrier on display in California. And it's Lego. Which, by the way, they had a 1/48 scale, wooden 1/48 scale model aircraft carrier on display here at the Maritime Museum for a long time. It was made by some high school shop class as a project. But a 1,000,000-piece Lego carrier. That's somebody who, well, I imagine it was a team that put that together. But now my question is, did Lego actually manufacture a 1,000,000-piece Lego aircraft carrier, or did they just take Legos and build the thing and shape them as needed?
I would think number 2.
Yeah.
Could you picture what the price of a 1,000,000-piece Lego set would be?
Yeah, that'd be up there.
I mean, have you been to a Lego store or even Walmart, which has now a almost complete aisle of Lego, and look at some of the prices on some of those sets?
Anything made out of styrene, baby. Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, I've only looked at the price of kit models to be equally, shocked. One of the...
No.
No what?
Now, I'll give you a piece of trivia.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the 90s, when I worked for Samsonite in Denver, we made the bricks for Lego.
Really?
Yes. And we made all the bricks, and we shipped them to them in Connecticut, where their headquarters were, and then they put them into the sets. You got to remember, they didn't have a lot of sets back then.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
All right, so that went through all the stuff I had pre-prepared. So now it's time to see what the biggest Lego set is. About 10,000 pieces. Oh, okay. So you need 100 of them to make the 10,000. Yeah, you need 100 of them to make your aircraft carrier in that scale. But when you get back to the aircraft carriers, though, I had never really considered aircraft carriers hard models to build until I went to I think it was Model Palooza. No, it was JaxCon. And I saw a judge out there with a level and a micrometer measuring the deck to the hull to make sure it was perfectly flush. And I mean, that's... I came home and looked at mine and was like, okay, maybe they're a little harder to build than I thought. But the carriers, the last one I built, like I said, was that Fujimi kit. And that kind of rewired the way I look at model aircraft carriers, because I figured one at such a small scale, wouldn't have that much detail, and boy, I could not have been more wrong. Those guys at Fujimi border on the insane. But I'd always heard that Fujimi kits were particularly noted for, like lots of small parts. I believe the word that runs around a lot is fiddly. and their cars aren't. The cars may be worse.
They're the IMC of Japan.
Yeah, yeah. But I got to give them credit though. It was really a good kit and even the decals were really good. When I was done with it, I was sitting there looking at it. Well, that really is a nice kit. It's just very hard to work with. I mean, tweezers and 3 layers of lenses so you can see what you're doing. But they really did do a nice job with it. I got to give them props for that. But yeah, you're not the first person to say that the Tamiya Enterprise though is the way to go.
It's a really good kit. I built one for someone, and it basically fell together right out of the box. I mean, there was a lot of painting, but, as far as the build goes, it was really detailed and it was really easy to put together. But it looked great when it was done.
The World War II aircraft carriers and the angle decks, of course, well, some of the old, Essex and Midway class were converted to angle decks, but it was actually a British invention. But the later ones that had a lot more angle to them, I mean, you look at a World War II aircraft carrier, and it basically looks like, it's a literal flat top. It just looks like a rectangle floating across the ocean. Some of the Japanese ones didn't even have superstructures on them, so they literally look like a shoebox going across the ocean. You have the Akagi, like, good Lord, But then you get to some of these later American super carriers and everything, and you're like, holy crap, there's a lot going on here. The idea of conducting flight operations, spotting aircraft, all at the same time is something they couldn't even dreamed of in the Second World War. In World War II, it was you're landing aircraft, you're launching aircraft, or you're spotting aircraft. Okay? Everything had to be done one at a time, once they got the angle decks aggressive enough, and geez, you thought aircraft carriers were a dangerous place to work before that, when they only did one thing at a time. And instead of spinning propellers, you got jet engines trying to suck you in, which has happened. And all of this on the confined deck of a ship. And one pilot I know who flew Vigilantes was saying that when you taxi the Vigilante, they spot the aircraft on the edge of the deck. Well, what you do is you taxi over there, and then the guy you're watching, the ground guy, and he tells you when to turn. Well, the Vigilante, the nose gear is like 11 feet behind the pilot, right? He's way out on the nose, and the gear's way back there, because the airplanes have to have a small footprint for wheels on the carrier. And he's literally, you're literally sticking the cockpit over the edge of the ship, looking down at the ocean racing by, waiting for this kid to give you the signal to turn. And finally he gives it to you, and you swing around. He goes, that's the scariest part of operating an airplane. The first thing jets do after they land, or before they take off, first thing when they roll, first thing they do is check their brakes. And I'm like, yeah, you got some 19-year-old high school dropout there marshaling your airplane, and if he takes his eye off the ball, you just taxi into the ocean. Running an airport on, a space that tight. They say that a carrier deck is the most dangerous work environment in the world.
Yes, they do.
Also, it's a build on the Akagi with a PE for deck structure. Yeah, I imagine the Akagi would have a lot of PE. I've looked at some of the large-scale models of the Akagi, and it almost gives me the chills to look at how much structure is exposed that has to be done with PE if you want it to look good. And I'll give the people credit, man. They did some fantastic jobs, but you're like, you got to be a monk. Yeah. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, this one kind of shows it. Copy. And paste and crop. Okay. Let's go back here. Image. Okay, I just downloaded the picture. It should be right here in front. Oh, there it is. Good Lord. Oh, there we go. All right, you guys will see it here shortly. But because you have to remember, most of these ships were cruisers that were converted. But it almost looks, if it hadn't been so, efficient, I'd say it looked comical. But the Japanese couldn't have done things more different than us if they tried. But the Akagi, I mean, look at all that railing. You got all the boats and everything, and structure up underneath it. It's just, and those antennas those are ultra low frequency antennas, and of course they have to lower them off to the side to do a launch. But you're not seeing the rear of the ship, the stern, which has a lot more detail than the bow does. And of course they got the funnel that aims down, to try and keep the smoke away from the airplanes, so the pilots can see what they're doing. And it's just that'd be a heck of a kit to build. And you see guys that put full interiors in, or large hangars and everything and stuff. It's just, geez, that's a lot. And I'm not sure that image isn't backwards, because I don't think the Akagi had a port side island. But you take the thing out of the water, it really looks weird.
Yeah, it does. All of their aircraft carriers look like they started out as regular ships.
Well, a lot of them did.
And
That's exactly.
And then they put the top on them.
That is exactly what happened. And I can tell you what, here's an image, a waterline image of the Akagi. Let me. When you see the waterline image, it looks a lot better, because it's that enormous red hull that makes it look I hate to use this word, dorkier than it actually is. But here we go. All right, there you go. Now you see this image, it looks a lot cleaner. And it actually was a very fast aircraft carrier. In fact, the slowest one in the fleet was a Kaga, because she'd been a battleship at one point. And Akagi had been I think a heavy cruiser, and so she was a lot quicker, and she was a flagship. But one of the that's interesting. I'm not. Let me take a look. Okay, now I got to look at the real Akagi, because something here ain't right, I think. No, son of a gun. Akagi did have a port side superstructure. I never noticed that. I got a model of it right here beside me. I didn't even realize that. I knew here you had one. But oh well. Normally, pilots for some reason, tend to go left whenever they have a problem. When they learned that by putting the island on the port side, guys tended to crash their planes into it more often. Yeah, she got taken about one bomb amidships at Midway. And two of them that went off really, really, really close. It was Dick Best that dealt the killing blow, and Weaver's bomb jammed the rudder, so they couldn't put the fire out. Oh wow! Now here. I just found this. Who did this? Copy image. This is from iModeler. Now this is a. Let me paste. Get over here and put this up here. This is a great way to display a model. This gets back to what Tommy was asking about, how people display stuff. Now this, look at, you guys will see it here in a few seconds. I got it up, but that is really cool. And I don't know if that's, I guess that's cotton, but he's got to have LEDs or something in it because they're glowing. And he's even got the lights on inside the island. And he's got the, I guess that's the Nagara next to them.
Nice.
That's where he transferred his flag. Man, that is very nicely done. I have trouble just getting water to look like that. I'm assuming that water is probably poured acrylic, I'm guessing. But then you got to be able to shape it and everything. There are a lot of techniques for making water. And like anybody else, I'll go on YouTube and see how to do it if I need to make it. I'm going to make something like this at some point. Actually, it wouldn't be a bad idea to make something like that for the Arizona, just to make it look a little different. But I don't intend to do the Arizona getting blown up, though. But that's impressive. And look at all the work. You can see just all the work on the aircraft carrier itself. It gives you an idea how complex that model is. 1 to 700, and the airplanes even look good. You can tell the Akagi aircraft, they're the ones with the one red stripe on the fuselage. Fran's bringing up how navigating, that's true. Navigating over open water, it's all dead reckoning. Needle ball and airspeed and time, compass heading, and you have the big E6B, the big whiz wheel that the Navy pilots carried and it slid out of the instrument panel. And you would put in your compass heading and the winds and all that stuff and a couple of pencil marks and figure out which way you're supposed to go. But believe me, even finding a ship, even out over the ocean, can be difficult unless they're cutting up a big wake. It makes it a lot easier because they're painted gray to be low visibility. And I fly over the ocean all the time. And sometimes when I'm down low, it amazes me how visibility can get down to 3 or 4 miles, even on a quote-unquote VFR day. Now, the Americans did come up with the Huff Duff, the direction finder, which helped them. But it was not always super reliable. It was a little more art than science, and you had to know how to use it properly. But, yeah, it was real easy to get by. More than one naval aviator went flying out into the middle of nowhere, couldn't find the fleet. God help you if the sun went down. In fact, what was it? I forget which battle it was. The captain, the admiral, actually had him turn the lights on the ships because the planes were getting back after dark, and which would have made him a target for any submarine in the area. But he didn't want to lose his whole air complement, so they lit up the ship, and everybody found their way home. Those that didn't run out of fuel.
I remember Jim Lovell told a story of when he was a pilot in Korea.
Mm-hmm.
And they got lost from the ship in weather and their radios were out.
Mm-hmm.
And he said the way they found their way back to the ship was they looked at the difference in the color in the water that was caused by the wake of the ship.
Right. Which on a dark night you can see that.
Yeah. And that was how they found their way back.
Well, if you read his book, he'll tell you the part of that story they didn't tell in the movie. The reason the lights went out in his cockpit was because he had tried to jerry-rig his own little lamp, and he shorted the system out when he turned it on.
Well, there you go.
So, aviation happens. But, so, Tommy, there's one for you. A cool way to display it. And, I don't know. Aircraft carriers, from a distance, they all just look like flat tops, but you get close and you really start to see that, with the exception of a few ships that were built in serial, like the Essex class and the Yorktown class, rarely are two aircraft carriers the same. And they're pretty individual vessels for the most part. And Wasp and Ranger were, designed with different stuff in mind, so they were unlike any other carriers in the world. Unfortunately, the shortcuts that were taken wound up costing them dearly. And I think it was Ranger was limited to kind of aircraft. And some people say that we lost the Wasp because of some of the shortcuts they took in construction to keep the weight down. So, but a lot of flat tops were just freighters, colliers, and stuff. That like this one bottom center, the Langley, our very first aircraft carrier. She was a collier that was converted just to see if aircraft carrier concept would work. But we had a lot of the CVEs, the escort carriers, Jeep carriers, they were basically made on glorified Liberty ship or tanker bodies. So they were, they used to joke that the CVE, carrier, heavier than air, and escort. And they used to joke it stood for combustible, vulnerable, expendable.
When they would decommission them, when they would strip everything out of them, they used to bring them up to Newport, Rhode Island, where the Naval College is.
Yeah.
And I remember being up there for a weekend with my wife, and we drove past, and it was the Ranger, and I forget what the other one was, and they had taken everything out of them before they were going to sell them for scrap. These things were sitting so high out of the water because there was nothing in them. I thought they were going to flip over.
Yeah, well, that's a concern. That can happen. After the war, after World War II, Halsey tried to get the money together to keep Enterprise as a museum ship, but he just couldn't raise the funds. And so she, although I think it's her bell is still at the Naval Academy, unfortunately she went to the scrapper. And a lot of people consider that a crime against history because she was such a loved and popular ship, and had such a rich history. But in the end, they can't keep it unless they can do something with it. And the money wasn't there to make a museum out of it. So there you have it. Off to the scrapper. Off with her head. And that's too bad. I really enjoy. I like the museum ships. I've been on a couple of aircraft carriers. Some of my friends served on them. Some of my teachers served on them. And every ship has its stories. But the Enterprise is almost. I mean, she was. You realize the Enterprise is the only aircraft carrier I think we had that was in service from before the war till after the war. Saratoga survived, but she was out for a chunk of the war getting fixed. Well, I guess so was Enterprise a little bit. So her and Saratoga, because we'd lost Yorktown, Hornet, Langley, Wasp, and Yorktown. We lost Lexington. Saratoga was actually, I think, used in the bikini bomb tests after the war. Yeah, going out with a bang. Where is Halsey? The world wonders. That's when Halsey went chasing after the Japanese on a decoy. He fell for the decoy and left all those guys, Taffy 3, alone. And they wound up, a couple of destroyers and 3 destroyer escorts wound up taking on the entire Japanese battle wagon fleet. And surprisingly turned them around. I mean, God, as Day of the Tin Can Sailors. I'm sure most guys, you're all familiar with that story, but it was
truly in harm's way.
Well, that was sort of based on that. I think that was more based on the Battle of Iron Bottom Sound, but I mean, our landings was at Leyte. It was Battle of Leyte Gulf, I believe. And my ROTC instructor was there. He was in the Army, and if they had eradicated the Americans there and started shelling, they could have the damage they could have done to our invasion forces incalculable. I think they lost 2 or 3 of the ships that attacked, and but they all went down fighting and trying to get in close where the battleships couldn't use their big guns and everything, and lay in smoke. And the fighter plane, they had 3 little escort carriers, and I think it was Lipscomb Bay was sunk, which I believe had Dory Miller, the large black sailor who had supposedly gotten a medal for shooting down a Zero or shooting down a Japanese airplane or 2 at Pearl Harbor. But I think that's where he was. But anyway, the airplanes were making strafing runs. They ran out of ammo, so they just started doing buzz runs. They figured the Japanese don't know we're out of bullets. And the little carriers tried to run away, but they were built on basically freighter hulls. So they were good for about 12, 14 knots. They weren't getting away from cruisers and destroyers. And the Japanese made pretty quick work out of some of them. But they, the commander of the Taffy 3, they lay smoke, so now they can't see us. And all he knew was destroyers and destroyer escorts kept coming out of the smoke at full speed, shooting and getting in close and launching torpedoes. And and scared the bejesus out of the Japanese commander, and they'd get shot up and shoot back and sail back in the smoke and come back. A lot of times they didn't know it was the same ships. And they basically created chaos and confusion. And they sowed chaos and confusion and used it to their advantage with an unbelievably aggressive spirit. And they pulled it off. God bless them. I mean, that's actually that's probably one of the most incredible stories in the history of the U.S. Navy. And that stuff's up there with I have not yet begun to fight, you know. But the battle of Niagara with the brig, or is it the brig Niagara? I forget. But it's just, oh man, Halsey never lived that one down. Well, that's why in the movie The Hunt for Red October, you know, he's talking around, Ryan, I know this book. Yeah, your conclusions are all wrong. Halsey acted stupidly. Yeah, he was on the West Virginia at Pearl. That's right, Dory Miller. And but once we got the first of our genuinely designed fleet carriers, the Yorktown built, they realized they had a winning design and made two more, and that would of course be Enterprise and Hornet. And when Hornet, after Hornet was made, they said, okay, there's some improvements we need to make. They redesigned the ship, and they came out with the Essex class. And the Essex class was used all throughout. I mean, they were used up through Korea. They were turned into angle decks. And then an improvement on that became the midways. But as the jets came on after the war, the Panthers and stuff, especially they started getting the swept wing jets like the Cougars. And the Cutlass. Oh, jeez. They were like, yeah, we can't use these Essex class and these little Yorktown class anymore. They're just not big enough. But I just watched the videos and interview, and I believe the gentleman unfortunately has since passed away, but he was in the Blue Angels back in the days of the props and the jets, and I'd forgotten the Blue Angels actually had two F7U Cutlasses. This airplane had like a 40% attrition rate out in the fleet. And he talked about flying it, and he said, you know, that in the air, when everything was working, the airplane was a real hot rod. It could go supersonic and level flight, but there was always something wrong with it. He had all kinds of things. I was just listening to stories, you know, engine failures and all this other stuff. It was always causing problems. But they only used two of them, and they only used them for the solo act, while the I think it was the Panthers or Cougars were doing the regular show, and they gave them back as after like 6 months. But I'm trying to think, flying something like that off of an aircraft carrier. The airplane was dangerous, tricky to fly, fast as a rocket, but it had like an 11-foot nose gear on it because it had come in at such a high pitch angle, and it's on one of these old World War II ships with an angle deck slapped on it. And you go out, there's no shortage of crash footage of those things on aircraft carriers. And the old saying was there was never nothing broken with it. It was always broke. They did not want to give the aero team the good planes. A lot of people don't know, but the F-18s that the Blue Angels get have been retired from the fleet. They strip them down and turn them into show planes. The F-16s of the Thunderbirds, I'm not really sure what their story is, but I do know that they're technically classified as an active squadron. In fact, the Blue Angels had to cease during the Korean War because they had to take the planes back to go fight the war. The Gutless Cutlass, or Ensign Eater. Yeah, the engines were a big part, but also had extremely complex plumbing. Let me grab a picture real quick so those who aren't into Cutlasses know what we're talking about. I mean, the airplane is a spaceship. It looks like it came off the set of Star Wars. God Copy image. I'll save as. Save. Now let's go here. Image. There we go. Gotta give it credit. It is one cool looking airplane. And those are the two they use in the blues. And it was only in Navy inventory for a few years. It was the first Navy jet that could do Mach 1 in level flight. And you could see pretty well out of it, as you can tell by the way that bubble's mounted. And they were really pushing the technology of the day. If the hydraulic system had worked and it had better engines, it might have been okay. It probably could have, they were really trying to get a lot out of the airframes back then. And they didn't know as much then, obviously, as they know now, and it led to some real issues. But, I lost a lot of guys in those things. And, oh, jeez. I look for Cutlass crash, and they're all over the place. It just peppers the, Jesus. Okay, here's a dramatic photo for you. Hang on just a second. And if this is the one I'm thinking of, I think the pilot was killed, but I'm not sure. I know they killed a lot of pilots in them. Let's see. There it is. Okay, when you see it, when you get it, tell me that's not a dramatic photograph. I mean, there's literally an engine flying out of the fireball behind the airplane. And I think they landed them with the canopy open to facilitate getting out in an emergency. I don't know if this is the one, but I think it is. But I read an article about an air in space, and back in those days, the captain of an aircraft carrier was the Lord and High Master. He was not second guessed by anyone. He could do anything he wanted. And I believe they were out in the Med, and they had so many mishaps and accidents and problems that the captain told the commander of the Cutlass squadron, take your airplanes, get off my ship, go land at Cadiz, Spain. I don't care what happens to you, but don't ever come back. And he just kicked the whole squadron off the ship. And tell me that's not a dramatic photo. Steve?
Time magazine cover.
The plane may have been gutless, the pilots weren't. Now, although I don't think I could bring myself to have the heart to do it, if you want to make a diorama with a big LED explosion, there you go. Wow. I mean, that's an entire engine flying off back there. Good Lord. Lieutenant Commander J. Alkiri, United States Navy Reserve, Fighter Squadron VF-124, who died during this crash. That is the one I'm thinking of. There's also video footage of it. They only served on a year before being grounded due to safety concerns, much replaced by the much more successful F-8 Crusader, which served for 32 years. But, in the never mind. I just found a model of it somebody made.
Oh, let's see it.
I'm working on it now. It's actually really good, too. Okay. Bum, 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 bum. complete with the enlisted man running for his life. I don't know if he couldn't get to the ejection handles. I mean, he was probably getting slammed around pretty hard. I'm not sure if that's the exact same mishap or a different one, but it's the same basic story.
What happened here? Because he's over to the left. You know, was he trying to go around and make it? Or
I've seen it because they filmed all those things, and I think he had a. You know, since he didn't survive, and the airplane went in the ocean, I don't know if they ever actually figured out if he had a control failure, which was prone to happen in that airplane, or lost an engine at a critical moment. Most likely, when he hit the deck, he got jarred so hard he probably couldn't reach to get the ejection handles, which was like a 3-step process in those those birds. It wasn't like the modern ones where you just grab the ring and pull. Yeah, there's no but he was probably getting jarred around so hard, and by when it hit the water, he was probably unconscious. Let's see if that is the same.
It's a nice kit of a bad subject, but it's a nice kit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Number 412. And, well,
you got the engine at the top of the explosion.
Yeah. Well, let's take a deep dive. I just found the video of it crashing. I don't think I can pipe that in, but let's see. Oh, here it is. He's lined up. He's drifting left. And it looks like a normal approach. Okay, looks like a normal approach. Nose is coming down a little. There's the hook. Okay, that one was a successful landing, but like he cracked like the rear of the. Here comes another one. Oh, this is just deck footage of the landings. Man, every time that thing hits, it looks like the rear end's about to hit the. Oh, let's see. Here we go.
Well, the thing had a weird angle of attack because of that front
It had
gear.
very nose up. There's one that went into the barrier. This one may. Okay, this one's hook broke, and he's going into the barrier. Pilot's head down. He's just holding on to the dash and nothing he can do. Okay. And I realize it's more like radio. That one didn't have a landing gear. It came on down with 2 gears. And there goes the wheel rolling out. Okay, here comes our plane. Oh, it was ramp strike. Yeah, that's it. It was a ramp strike. Oh, Jesus, the total fireball.
So he hit the end of the deck.
He hit the end of the deck. The plane just sank on him. Let me watch that again. Oh, Jesus. Let me see if I can do a screen grab here. Oh, yep. It's just the approach. He just started sinking on the approach. And probably the slow throttle response in those engines. Let me do a screen grab real quick. That approach probably fell apart in the last 3 seconds. Okay. That hurts to watch. Alright, here we go. You can see the airplane, the tail of the airplane's actually below, and it just, those engines could take upwards of like 11 seconds to throttle up. Once it started sinking, he probably added the power to it, and it just wouldn't recover. He's going right for the LSO station also. My guess is I don't see the LSO there. So I'm guessing that he's already run and jumped into his little safety thing, his little safety basket.
Oh, yeah, believe me. Wow.
And, oh, man. And as it shows in the picture, as it gets further down, the thing is engulfed in flames before it gets off the deck. I mean, before it goes off the side. Oh, God, what a mess. Oh, here we go. You know what? I'll put the link to this. Copy. I'll put the link to this in the description when we're done. Anyway, that's sad. But this airplane was just relentlessly unforgiving. And well, guys, that kind of wraps up everything we had for tonight. So if there's anything you want to talk about, we're going to shut down on time. I have to go to work tomorrow, so I got to pack and everything. So what's everybody got going on?
What did you think of this plane that had a notorious history for being sort of, the proper word is probably like risky?
Mm-hmm.
But this didn't come up when they were testing it before it put it into, you know.
Oh, no, it came up. They knew it had its quirks, but, I mean, it was the 50s. All the airplanes back then had, you know, let's just say there was a different standard. And it was, once it got into fleet service, out of the hands of test pilots and into the hands of the average ensign, that's when they really started realizing we got a problem on our hands. And that's why I was only out for a year or two on the fleet. And I mean, I had never heard of a captain kicking an entire squadron off of his ship before, but and I think it had like a 40% attrition rate. It was pretty bad. It served land-based for a while, and I mean, you have to remember the height of the Cold War, and the airplane did offer the Navy a legitimate supersonic interceptor. That was something that they couldn't say no to, and it did have 2 engines, which is important for, you know, naval aircraft, because flying out over the water, there's no chance of recovery if you have an engine out. So, and you know, it wasn't the only trouble-plagued airplane. The F-11 Tiger that we had, that the Blue Angels used for a long time, everyone that flew it said it was a great flying airplane, but apparently it only had, I think, like 45 minutes of internal fuel on it. So it was very short-legged. As good as it looked, they said it had its quirks. All the airplanes back then had their quirks. The Grummins were pretty bulletproof airplanes, but they weren't the hottest performers. But they were, I think, more reliable. The Cougar was pretty well respected. So was the Panther, for that matter. But the Panther couldn't keep up with the MiG, and was a straight-wing jet, which is, I think, with the impetus for them moving on to the Cougar, put a bigger engine, put swept wings on it. And you see, the Navy's at a unique disadvantage. They need the same performance as any other military aircraft, but they got to operate them off of ships. And that adds a whole new dimension to things. Heavier landing gears, you know, the slow speed characteristics. The F-4 Phantom's one of the only jets that ever was used by the Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps. And it was originally, I believe it was originally a Navy aircraft. And the Air Force got it, the first called it the F-110 Spectre. But then they decided, no, we've got too many names and weird nomenclatures. We need just a common system. So they all became known as the F-4. That's one with the F series that we know today: F-4, F-15, F-16, and it's ironic. The F-4 Phantom was, I believe, originally a Navy design, and the F-18 was originally an Air Force design called the F-17. The Navy liked it when it lost its fly-off and didn't get selected. And so the Navy had them re-engineer the airplane for aircraft carrier operations, and it became the F-18. So, way aviation history goes. Sherman heavy tanks, but it was a woefully inadequate tank, but it made tens of thousands. Well, the Sherman was inadequate to fight something like a Tiger or Panther head-to-head, especially with the M3 gun. But the tank itself was very reliable. Nothing was going to stop that high velocity 75 or that 88. People talk about it only had 2.5 inches of armor, but the glacis was sloped at 30 degrees, putting it closer to 4 inches. But that didn't matter. That 88 and that high velocity 75 were going to whistle through. You could knock out another Panther with it, or another Tiger with a Tiger gun or a Panther gun. Nothing was going to stop those guns. That was a point where the guns had completely outstripped the armor capability of any nation. But the ability to make 55,000 of them versus 1,500 Tigers and 5,000 Panthers. But also tank-on-tank warfare, I mean, it happened for sure, but tank-on-tank warfare didn't happen in a lot of places. The Sherman was a really good tank, but it's again from made to fit at British request. And for the first couple of years of the war, there was nothing wrong with it. It wasn't until the Germans started rolling out the heavy armor, and like, whoops, I think we're going to have to upgun this thing. And they did come out with a jumbo Sherman and a few other, applique armor and stuff, but it was never going to be enough to stop those high-velocity German guns. It just wasn't happening. To make a tank that could stop an 88 millimeter or a high-velocity 75, you pretty much would sink into the ground if you put that much armor on it. And when the Shermans got their Firefly models in, we got the high-velocity 76, which is actually a high-velocity 75, but they wanted to prevent confusion. They could take out German armor, but the real thing was usually most tank battles, according to the Chieftain, and history backs him up, most tank battles are won by who sees who first, just like most dogfights. There was just a real in-depth study done about what the Germans thought of the Spitfire and the Hurricane, and a lot of the data had to be thrown away because very few of the German pilots had ever actually gotten a dogfight with one. Normally a fighter pilot wants to sneak up behind you, shoot you down, and run away. And if you got into a twisting, turning dogfight, somebody had already messed up because you're supposed to hit and run. Well, the German pilots, all of their opinions varied. They had to throw away the ones. You've got a guy's. He's got 15 victories, but he's never been in a dogfight because he's always gotten the tactical advantage. The guy never knew he was there. He shot him down on the first pass. Which is what you're supposed to do. But when guys did get, so they threw away all the slashing attacks and stuff, and went with, okay, we need to know about guys who have been in dogfights. And that turned out to be a somewhat smaller pool of pilots. And the opinion of the British equipment almost invariably dovetailed with the experience level of the pilot. You get someone like Galland or one of those guys who was extremely experienced and very good. He's like, yeah, they're you got to be careful, but they're no big challenge. We can handle them. You get some young lieutenant who is in his first dogfight, he's wrenching the plane all over this guy. Oh, the British airplanes are magical. You can't even train your guns on them. So pilot skill had a big deal to do with that. When it was all said and done, their general survey came down to the conclusion that the airplanes were pretty much neck and neck. Each of them had little advantages, but in the end, it was going to be the guy behind the stick that made the difference, or if the other guy made a mistake. So a lot of, there were tank battles where American tanks wiped out dozens of Panthers. What was that? It was not Agincourt, but a bunch of American tanks caught the Panthers down a valley from the side and just rained shells on them and knocked out a bunch of them. But those tank crews were inexperienced, and there were times the opposite happened. So and Americans were always rolling into ambushes because we were on the attack, and the Germans were the masters of setting up true tank destroyer doctrine. But Sherman's probably one of the Sherman's biggest problems is its high profile. It was really easy to see. But the main thing the Sherman had going for it more than anything else, beyond any technical advantage, was it was there. You can have the greatest tank in the world or airplane in the world, doesn't do you a lick of good if it isn't there. And the Sherman can be manufactured in big numbers, kept running, transported relatively easily, and it was a good little tank. It was not perfect by any means, and it certainly had its shortcomings. But the Americans used a couple of Panthers that they captured for a while until they basically broke down. They couldn't fix any of the parts, and they liked the gun on it, and then it was a smooth ride, fairly quick. But it had its problems too. And but yeah, if you were going to put two of them in an open field and duke it out, I think I'd rather be in the Panther or the Tiger for sure. Absolutely. Especially that little M3 gun, which is a great gun for infantry fighting and knocking out bunkers and things like that. The M3 was a great little general purpose gun, and it'd go all the way up to Mark IV. Once we got an HVAP round and a stronger gun, we were able to, duke it out better. But yeah. So if we could have made, if we could have had when we first got our heavy tanks in the battle, a lot of the generals didn't want them. They're going to slow us down, and they did because they broke down so much. And our first two were lost in combat because they got ambushed. One with the M26 was Fireball was taken out by a Tiger because it rolled into an ambush, and the Tiger itself knocked itself out trying to back out and got stuck in debris. And the crew had to abandon the tank, so it was a Pyrrhic victory. But then the first time the Pershing had a lot of success, it was laying the ambush for incoming German armor. It knocked out 3 or 4 vehicles like that. So a lot of it's who sees who's first. But
well, it looks like the sands of time
it is
have once again brought an end.
Well, guys,
to all lovely life.
Yeah, Jamie, you're right. The 76 millimeter with the HVAP. If we could have had that in 41 with a lot of rounds, one of the problems was everybody needed tungsten for a whole bunch of things, and anti-tank rounds were in line with everything else that needed tungsten. So that was one thing. A lot of tanks only had 2 or 3 HVAP rounds when they did issue them, so they were very judicious about using those.
Well, good night, all.
Well, guys, I guess we're going to be wrapping up now. I'll loop the outro. I got to go get packed, and I want to thank everyone for coming out. I hope you had a good evening. I should have some coffee this afternoon. I'm starting to drag a little bit now. But if you guys, when I come back from this trip, I'm going to be off for a while. I'm going to focus on model building and putting out some videos. And, of course, the end of this month, we'll do our P-38 and Corsair viewers build. And that's pretty much it. Guys, take care of yourselves. Hope you have a great evening. Steve, you want to say y'all good night?
Good night, all, and thanks for being here.
Take care, guys, and as always, model on. One kit makes you happy, and one kit is too small, and the one from Mach 2 gets thrown at the wall. Go ask Atlantis, why don't you make them all? And if you go with the photo etch and you don't have the tools, you're going to end up angry and looking like a fool. Call Ian to order you some tools. When the part pops off the runner and heads for outer space, and you still cannot find it after tearing up the place, go ask Louis. I think he'll know. When the decals and acrylics have gotten old and dry, and the airbrush is all gummed up, and the yellow has fish eye. Remember what the manual said. Clean the head clean the head.
Watch World War III on pay TV. Television can be such a thrill. Sitting home in your chair, watch the boys over there, charging across your TV screen,
Getting blown to smithereens.
Watch World War III on pay TV. If you want to keep the kids at home, they'll be glued to their sets, watching rockets and jets, blowing up schools and factories, putting an end to the birds and bees. It's worth every penny to tune in and see who wins the Emmy at the ruins of the Academy. Watch World War III on pay TV before your television melts away.
Think of the close-ups on the screen.
By the face you know.
Isn't this better than Bishop Sheen?
Better than the Late Late Show. Watching the boys from your hometown.
Fighting whoever they are.
Watching the cities falling down.
It's greater than Jack Parr.
They're out setting up the cameras now. Though they don't know just where, still they've got to prepare. Murrow's there to do his part, waiting for the war to start. See the hydrogen bomb explode. As those mushrooms appear, you'll be sipping your beer. Zooming in with a zoom-our lens, watching while the whole world ends. It's worth every penny to tune in and see who wins the Emmy at the ruins of the Academy. Watch World War III on pay TV before your television melts away. Before your television melts away.
Just bought some kits at a clearance sale, a tank and a Mac flatbed, and started home from the hobby shop back to my tiny shed. Up late last night detailing, man, the nipper's well cared for. 5 hours had passed and I told my babe just a half hour more, a half hour more. The wife had started talking tough, the tiny girl is boss. She insists I acknowledge her point of view. I know now that I've lost, I know now that I've lost. The sheds are filled with a score of kits unfinished for a while. The jolly green dish to cut to, some camel's hair and my knife. The DC-10, there's a Saturn V and Messerschmitt in the unfinished pile. So this is a tale of a model kit unbuilt for a long, long time. I'm gonna have to let it sit, I barely got it primed. I'll first research the color scheme and do my very best to make it concours accurate, an obsession and a quest. Nose cone, strobe lights, tail rotor spar, and getting up at dawn. The sand runs through the hourglass and modeling time is gone. So make some modeling time each day, it's sure to make you smile, and finish all your model kits in your unfinished pile.
I often do these late night builds on some old kit I've found, and my mind goes back to the shelves and stacks of a store that's not around. It was not far from my neighborhood, I just liked to look around, where I'd forget the glue and would then have to go back to Hobby Town. I remember many years ago, the first kit that I chose. Then every day a new display as my stash steadily grows. The kits I make may one day break, and dust might fill my nose, but I still build, and I always will. I'm an idiot, I suppose. So I bid farewell to Hobby Town. I never more will see. But paint and glue are what I do, so it's eBay stores for me. Oh, I could have gotten all their stock, but I'm not one of those. They were almost free, but that's not me. I'm an idiot, I suppose. So come on, ye old glue troopers who can still build model kits. The kits are new, some need no glue, and others'll give you fits. When the paint's not dry, then you must try to leave it as it sits. If the kit is old, it can raise your soul when you have finished it. So let's bid farewell to the days of yore we never more will see. Grab your glue and get right back to that vintage old styrene. Oh, Miss Aurora and Monogram and the old kits that we chose. But we still build, and we always will. We're all idiots, I suppose.
Up over the target and flat on my back, alone and scared shitless, surrounded by flak. There's MiGs on my ass and my burner won't light. Got hung bombs and rockets, but I'll stay and fight. Does anybody read Fireball? I'm bingo for crying out loud. Please keep me out of the weather. I'm no good at flying in clouds. I came here from Seymour 13 months ago. Why MPC did this to me, I don't know. I came in the Air Force 'cause I want to fly. Now I want my mama, I don't want to die. Does anybody read Fireball? The sun's almost down out of sight. GCA, can you hear me? I'm no good at flying at night. Last time I got shot at was 72. My flight leader always told me what to do. But combat is different now, here's how it's done. It's 1v1, v1, v1, v1. Does anybody read Fireball? The airlines are hiring, I hear. Guess I'll take United's offer, a brave DC-10 engineer.
One kit makes you happy, and one kit is too small, and the one from Mach 2 gets thrown at the wall. Go ask Atlantis, why don't you make them all? And if you go with the photo etch and you don't have the tools, you're going to end up angry and looking like a fool. Call Ian to order you some tools. When the part pops off the runner and heads for outer space, and you still cannot find it after tearing up the place, go ask Louie. I think he'll know when the decals and acrylics have gotten old and dry, and the airbrush is all gummed up, and the yellow has fish eye. Remember what the manual said. Clean the head. Clean the head. One kit makes you happy, and one kit is too small, and the one from Mach 2 gets thrown at the wall. Go ask Atlantis, why don't you make them all? And if you go with the photo etch and you don't have the tools, you're going to end up angry and looking like a fool. Call Ian to order you some tools. When the part pops off the runner and heads for outer space, and you still cannot find it after tearing up the place, go ask Louie. I think he'll know when the decals and acrylics have gotten old and dry, and the airbrush is all gummed up, and the yellow has fish eye. Remember what the manual said. Clean the head. Clean the head.
TV screen,
Spinning blown to smithereens.
watch World War III on pay TV. If you want to keep the kids at home, they'll be glued to their sets, watching rockets and jets, blowing up schools and factories, putting an end to the birds and bees. It's worth every penny to tune in and see who wins the Emmy at the ruins of the Academy. Watch World War III on pay TV before your television melts away.
Think of the close-ups on the screen.
What a face you know.
Isn't this better than Bishop Sheen?
Better than the Late Late Show. Watching the boys from your hometown.
Fighting whoever they are.
Watching the cities falling down.
It's greater than Jack Parr.
They're out setting up the cameras now. Though they don't know just where, still they've got to prepare. Murrow's there to do his part, waiting for the war to start. See the hydrogen bomb explode sipping your beer. Zooming in with a zoom our lens, watching while the whole world ends. It's worth every penny to tune in and see. Who wins the Emmy at the ruins of the Academy? Watch World War III on pay TV before your television melts away. Before your television melts away.
Just bought some kits at a clearance sale, a tank and a Mac flatbed, and started home from the hobby shop back to my tiny shed. Up late last night detailing, man, the nipper's well cared for. 5 hours had passed and I told my babe just a half hour more, a half hour more. The wife had started talking tough, the tiny girl is boss. She insists I acknowledge her point of view. I know now that I've lost, I know now that I've lost. The sheds are filled with a score of kits unfinished for a while. The jolly green dish to cut to, some camel's hair and my knife. The DC-10, there's a Saturn V and Messerschmitt in the unfinished pile. So this is a tale of a model kit unbuilt for a long, long time. I'm gonna have to let it sit, I barely got it primed. I'll first research the color scheme and do my very best to make it concours accurate, an obsession and a quest. Nose cone, strobe lights, tail rotor spar, and getting up at dawn. The sand runs through the hourglass and modeling time is gone. So make some modeling time each day, it's sure to make you smile, and finish all your model kits in your unfinished pile.
I often do these late night builds on some old kit I've found, and my mind goes back to the shelves and stacks of a store that's not around. It was not far from my neighborhood, I just liked to look around, or I'd forget the glue and would then have to go back to Hobby Town. I remember many years ago, the first kit that I chose. Then every day a new display as my stash steadily grows. The kits I make may one day break and dust might fill my nose, but I still build and I always will. I'm an idiot, I suppose. So I bid farewell to Hobby Town, I never more will see. But paint and glue are what I do, so it's eBay stores for me. Oh, I could have gotten all their stock, but I'm not one of those. They were almost free, but that's not me. I'm an idiot, I suppose. So come on, ye old glue troopers who can still build model kits. The kits are new, some need no glue, and others'll give you fits. When the paint's not dry, then you must try to leave it as it sits. If the kit is old, it can raise your soul when you have finished it. So let's bid farewell to the days of yore we never more will see. Grab your glue and get right back to that vintage old styrene. Oh, a Miss Aurora and Monogram and the old kits that we chose. But we still build, and we always will. We're all idiots, I suppose.
Up over the target and flat on my back, alone and scared shitless, surrounded by flak. There's MiGs on my ass and my burner won't light. Got hung bombs and rockets, but I'll stay and fight. Does anybody read Fireball? I'm bingo for crying out loud. Please keep me out of the weather. I'm no good at flying in clouds. I came here from Seymour 13 months ago. Why MPC did this to me, I don't know. I came in the Air Force 'cause I want to fly. Now I want my mama, I don't want to die. Does anybody read Fireball? The sun's almost down out of sight. GCA, can you hear me? I'm no good at flying at night. Last time I got shot at was 72. My flight leader always told me what to do. But combat is different now. Here's how it's done. It's 1v1, v1, v1, v1. Does anybody read Fireball? The airlines are hiring, I hear. Guess I'll take United's offer. A brave DC-10 engineer.